Hello and welcome to the MS for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian. And on today's episode, I have such a fun treat for you. Before we get started, I want to mention our sponsor, Milk and Honey Jewelry. You guys have heard me talk about how beautiful their jewelry is and how it's something that you're going to want to pass down to future generations. It is that high of quality. You can use the code Abby15, ABBIE15 to get 15% off your order. All you do is send in a sample of breast milk or formula to commemorate the time of feeding your little one. And then they send you back beautiful jewelry where they turn your breast milk or your formula into a stone. And it looks just like a stone that you can treasure forever. So if you want to check them out, you can go to milkandhoney.jewelry and use that code. Okay, so today I have, drum roll please. That's right. Okay, there's going to be a lot of giggling. I can already tell.
Sorry.
Be prepared, y'all. So today on the show, I have my best friend in the whole wide world, Lindsay Long.
Hi,
Lindsay.
Hi, Abby. That jewelry thing is so cool. I didn't know. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, it totally is a thing. Yeah, you literally, it's like a little teaspoon or half a teaspoon of breast milk. And it's this beautiful pearlescent stone. And then you get to be like, this is the memory of my feeding my baby. Or babies.
Yeah.
You can do more. Okay.
I don't lactate anymore. But
No. Sorry. But it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Unfortunately.
So this is my best friend, Lindsay Long. If you have read either MS for Mama or Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad, and then when you read book 3, Mystery Book 3, you will have seen her beautiful illustrations. She is an amazing artist. Her portrait art is ridiculous. It is just, the way you use light and texture to make people's eyes and hair and stuff come alive is just phenomenal. I'm not sweet. I'm truthful.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, so we live close to each other, about 20 minutes apart. We have been friends. Well, at least acquaintance friends for 20 years.
Yeah, 2006.
Oh,
would have been when
she's got the
just because it was the year we started teaching. 2005.
2005 because it's the year that I got married.
Yes, because I was not married because you were at my wedding.
That's right.
And we still are anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up teaching at the same private school together, but you taught art in the other building, and I taught high school Spanish in the main building. And so our paths didn't cross very often, but when they did, we always found something to talk about. It was easy to strike up a conversation.
Remember when we talked about birth control?
That's right.
And the art storage.
Yes.
Sorry. That was,
I
had no kids and you had Ezra in the stroller and it was really impactful.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So I cornered her in the closet.
Corner me.
and answered her questions about birth control. Yeah. And I think I was part of the reason why you got off of it.
Yeah. Well, I was only on it, I guess, a month. But it definitely, you were the reason I never tried anything different in that department. Yeah. So anyways.
Which that's a whole podcast in and of itself. Yeah. If you're like, wait, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
That was a rabbit trail. That's totally fine. So Lindsay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh. I feel like you set the stage really well. I live near Abby. I have 3 kids. They are 15, 13, 10. Would have happily had more. I am an artist, like Abby said. I've illustrated her books and then do just commission portraiture and kind of really anything anybody wants me to do. Then I homeschool. This is our 3rd year. I've not homeschooled as long as you. You know that. I know I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to them. Anyways, homeschool the kids, and I don't know. That's me right now. Those are my identities. Currently.
No, you forgot I talked you into being a body pump instructor.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. That's the new one. Yeah. So, fitness instruction. Business owner. I guess I should have said that. We own a bakery, and I don't know. I guess that's it.
She's not busy at all. Yeah. She never has anything going on ever.
Yeah. I'm also not used to talking about myself, so I'm trying to this is me, but I'm sure there's more to it. So.
There definitely is more to it. So we have been at the same gym, which has really helped facilitate the growth of our relationship.
That's when we really kicked off because you were pregnant with Della, and I was,
which Della is 13 years old.
Pregnant with Elisha, who's 13. Mm-hmm. She's younger.
When his birthday's October.
No, he's November 16th.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like
She's
5
younger by 5 days.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
So we basically were pregnant at the same time. And although I still don't think we were spending tons of time together at that point.
It wasn't until after I joined
Yeah.
Wood Creek, and then a little after that.
So I taught at a gym for 12 years, which closed down 2 years ago. And when it closed down, because we'd had such good times for 12 years, we, and a huge part of our relationship, and I've talked about this in podcasts and various things, was walking the trails near our gym, because our gym was super cool in allowing us to just leave our cell phone numbers. And then we might be 2 miles away from the gym on a walk. But as long as they could contact us and we could come back and change a diaper or calm the kid down or whatever, they were cool with the fact that we weren't in the building, which is kind of unusual, I think.
Well, yeah. And definitely it's like our therapy.
Yes.
You know, like
it really
that
was.
And really set the tone. I mean, Pain Pros started on the trail.
Yes. Okay. We forgot to mention that.
Sorry.
Yeah. We're not just best friends and book authors / illustrators. We have a business together called Paint and Pros, which I have mentioned here before. And Lindsay may have seemed like an ethereal, like, oh, that's the person that she does business with. Well, here she is in the flesh.
And you have a...
that's right. I'm wearing a Paint Pros hat. So if you're watching this, instead of just listening, I'm wearing a Flower Mama hat. And this is something that Lindsay drew. We designed together. So we have a working relationship. We pray for each other. We talk about absolutely everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Lego Movie 2? Where she goes, that's why I'm going to give you half of everything. And he goes, everything. And she goes, everything.
No, I have not. In fact, we talk about so much, I was worried that I would say things that you'd have to do too much editing, because I'm just very, not unfiltered in a bad way, but yeah, we talk about all of it. So yeah.
And this is like, if you were to ever think like the concept of someone's person, Lindsay's my person. Well, I mean, you are.
It's not good to get me in the emotional stage this early on.
We're going to start weeping 5 minutes into the conversation. So the Lord has really, really blessed me and healed many things in my heart through your relationship. I talk about in Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad. There's a whole chapter devoted to friendships and how it's hard to find those kindred spirits and those people that will be true to you, that won't be jealous of you, or you feel jealous of them, like it goes either way, that will persevere through those times, postpartum struggles, and that will support you, but also call you out. And I feel like we have something that is truly special, which is an iron sharpening iron relationship. I feel like I can tell you something, and if I'm off, you will call me on it, and vice versa. Agree?
Yeah, I agree.
See, y'all, I'm trying to draw her out.
I'm sorry.
It really is about 4 minutes of talking to her 30 seconds. Not because it's a domineering thing.
No, we just work this way anyways. So yeah.
But she definitely, there are times when she's just chattering away and she's like, sorry, I'm talking so much. I'm like, no, go talk.
Yeah, that was this morning on the trail. I kept apologizing for, it's like, I'm dominating the conversation. It's rare, but I was rare today.
So one of the reasons that I have you on here today is just to introduce someone that I love to the world. Ta-da, here's Lindsay. I love her. She waved. For the people that are not watching, she just did a Miss America wave.
Oh, okay. Because you're right. Some people will listen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Most people listen. Okay. So some people watch, most people listen. And I guess the people that watch also listen. I'm assuming you're using your ears as well and not just trying to lip read. But then I also had another specific reason for inviting you on. And that is that sometimes I get messages from moms that say, I'm thinking of one particularly, that basically said, I enjoy your podcast. I glean some good things from there, but I have a hard time relating to you because you do not have a special needs child. And so because that is my reality, because that's so impactful to me on an everyday basis, I would love it if you would bring on a mom who has special needs children or a special needs child. And so I thought of you. A, because you're my best friend. B, because you have walked a road of 15 years with a special needs child. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. My daughter, her name's Genevieve. We call her Evie. So not like Abby's Evie. They know you have an Evie, right? Okay. I know that it's like right now people are like hiding their kids and like not putting out real names. So for a second I was
they do know I have an Evie. Most people think it's Evie, but yes, it's Evie.
Anyways, so my Evie, without going into too much detail that the world does not need to know, There was a few complications when she was born, and she, around 3 weeks old, had multiple seizures, was life flighted from our little town to a bigger city, and had enough seizures within a 24-hour period that it resulted in stroke level damage on both sides of her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, it was, there's a lot to say, I feel like, on this. We're not just talking about how she became who she became, but I feel like knowing a little bit about it and what a process it's been, it didn't start, at 10. It started literally 3 weeks into her life, was our first time to start to interact with the medical community, to start to have to make hard decisions about things that you're making decisions about something that might happen. So it's like making a decision for what could, anyways, all of that. So at the very, very beginning, they said she may never walk or talk. She could just have severe learning disabilities. We'll just have to see, like time will tell, sort of thing. And so we went back every 3 months, drove back and forth to the larger city. And she kind of seemed fine, honestly, except that she would not sleep through the night. And she was my first, and I thought I just didn't know what I was doing. And I read all the books and tried all the things. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just not good at this. I don't know, whatever thought I had. And then the second came along and I was like, something's up. Anyways, fast forward, when she was close to 3 is when we really started to see how this brain damage was going to manifest. And they won't diagnose certain things at a younger age, but there was a lot in there from age 3 to 6. That's ultimately why I stopped teaching at Grace, was because I just needed to focus on her. It was a lot. So anyway, she was diagnosed with autism at 6. She was given the epilepsy diagnosis at that 3-week age because she continued to have seizures and be on seizure medication. She also has severe OCD, anxiety, and then she has IDD. She has an intellectual disability. So her IQ is under 50, which is, I don't even know the appropriate way to say it, but that's like the Downs range, anything under 50. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's like she's 9 years old is one level for some social stuff, yet she rates as pre-K for like reading and math, and then a lot of the emotional issues that come with true OCD. So, and there's a few other diagnoses since then, but yeah, that's. So I don't know if I hit everything you wanted me to hit.
Yeah. So obviously you've got a very multifaceted, ever-changing, and because I've been your friend for so long, I've seen you grapple with each new diagnosis that comes through. And I've seen you, on the trail saying, I would have been an amazing girl mom to a daughter who could receive that. And I will tell you that you are an amazing girl mom and boy mom. You are an amazing mom. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. And I've always told you this, but I will reiterate that one of the things that I admire the most about you is your refusal to pity yourself. Lindsay is someone who declares God's goodness while still having lots of questions about what this is going to practically look like.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like, because you are a strong Christian, you love God and you love his word, how do you feel like that relationship with him has impacted how you've kind of confronted all of this?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, Christian conservative home, and had that repetitious cycle of scripture being read to us every single day. And knowing that God is sovereign, I believe God is sovereign, and that he, like Psalm 139, like he knows, he forms us in our mother's wombs. And, in your book, like the hard things that we have in life, are these pruning, these things that are giving us the ultimate, for our ultimate good is Christ himself, is being made like him, is making his name great. And like, the greatest joy you can experience is making his name known, making his name great. So, not trying to tangent, but one of the things my dad always says a lot of times at our church in the benediction is, nothing is needful that he withholds. Everything is needful that he gives. So like when you think, well, I need this or I need that, and why didn't God give it to me? That ultimate nothing, if he is withholding it from you, it's not needful for where he's taking you, but everything is needful that he gives. And, for a while, I would say like at the very beginning, I don't know, this might sound really negative, so I don't want you guys to receive this in that way, but it kind of is a little bit like a death where you realize someone's died, but you cannot in and of yourself and your human shell and capacity drink the full cup of what that means in a week, right? It's like 6 months later when you think you hear their voice and you have to remind yourself they're gone, or a year later when it's Christmas. It's like you have to take it in doses because
you're talking about kind of the death of what could have been. Correct.
Yeah. And I was going to kind of break that down. Yes, sorry, exactly. No, you're fine. But like that, it's like that where you kind of hear, okay, well, she has this thing, and you're like, okay, and you don't know what is being told to you at the time because you haven't yet come to the point where you have to process the death of this dream and the death of this dream. And I mean, that's a grace from God. I think that's why grief is, quote, a process. I mean, there's books on it. There's steps to processing it, because I think we as humans cannot do it all at once. So it is definitely a grieving thing. But what's interesting and what I've had to ask myself somewhat is what am I grieving? Am I grieving what I thought her life should have looked like? Or am I grieving like certain freedoms that I've lost? I'm not going to have an empty nest.
I think that a lot of moms with disabled children who are severely disabled and know that theirs is a future of lifelong care, and knowing like they love their child enough to give that to them. And that is a form of sacrifice that in a way they are happy to give, because this is my child and I love them. I think a lot of them also just said, yes, exactly. Yeah. People don't understand. Yep. If you have this prospect of one day you will have all of your children out, and then they will be self-sufficient and they will come home and visit, and there will be Thanksgiving and Christmas and hopefully children and grandchildren and all these things. But when that's not even on the table, you're right. There's going to be some grief of like, I don't do that stage. I don't go to that step. Right.
Yeah. Well, and even, I don't know that I'll watch my daughter have a kid. Yeah. Like, I don't know that I'll get that joy of doing that. And so again, like if I was to be shown that, I don't know, like, in multi pictures all at once, when I'm getting this diagnosis at the age of 6, or even at, when she was 17 days old, and they're like, she has stroke on both sides of her brain. She may never walk or talk. Yeah. I didn't have the ability to comprehend what it meant that I will be her caregiver. Like at 18, we will apply for guardianship. We will be with her. But a good friend of mine, her son has Downs, and she lives in Houston. And one time she told me that she and her husband have what they call mini funerals. And it's a funeral for like this dream you didn't even know you had. And dream's a big word, but this thing you thought would happen. Like, oh wait, all the other kids are going to their first dance. Mine is not. All the other kids are getting their license. Mine is not. All the other kids are reading. Mine is not. Yeah. And you just kind of I think that what helps this process is acknowledging that is, I'm in grief for that. And that you have your funeral, you bury that thing, and then you move on. And that may sound like a little too practical or blunt, but like for me, if I don't acknowledge that part of this is a grief, then I don't think I'll have the full capacity or the strength to be who I need to be for Evie. If I just bury, which I've done before, in the past, hard things I just kind of buried.
Yeah.
So, but also that being said, like, what am I grieving? Well, I'm grieving this thing that for a lot of these things, it was things that I just thought of for her. Now, have I gotten to the point where I'm having to grieve with her when she says, why won't anybody play with me? Why don't I have friends? Like, that's sad.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and again, like you've written this book that, you kind of wrote on the trail. Like, we talked through all of, like, a lot of hard is not the same thing as bad, was us talking through real things we were going through. And just, like, what is everyone's hard going to be? For so long, this was my testimony. This is my hard, that I have this child. But then at one point I was kind of struck with, I don't know, it was pride or conviction, but I'm like, this isn't just my testimony. This is Evie's testimony. This is her life too.
Yeah, it is.
And I look at it at this point, and I'm not done. Obviously, that I have to help her shower, and I'm not done. And I will be doing this for as long as God lets me. But it's a privilege to be able to serve her in that way, because she knows God. This is her life too. And anyways, I just don't know if that's making a lot of sense, but those are kind of the most recent things I've been grappling with. And also, like I said, just the knowing that everything that he gives is a way for me to empty myself more, so that I put more of him and less of me, so I can know him more.
Yeah. As you were talking and you were talking about burying those dreams and kind of putting that in the ground, immediately John 12:24-26, I had to look it up on my phone really quickly to make sure that I didn't botch it, came to mind. It says, very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. And I just really want to encourage you. I'm always encouraging my readers, and I tell you the same thing, but I mean, just here right now, you are doing eternal work and pouring yourself out for Evie and putting those dreams of, quote, normalcy and expectations for these milestones into the ground, and saying, these I will bury and put to death for the sake of serving my daughter where she is. Because what you just said is so profound. It's not just your story. It's not even just Evie's story. It's your husband's story and your boy's story. Because he has two brothers who are kind to her, but deal with the repercussions of someone who struggles to interact with conflict and with things kind of throwing off her schedule and things like that. And it's not always kind interaction. I mean, I'm not kind all the time when things get in my way. I mean, we just moved. If you're watching this, you'll notice that we're back in the normal girl cave surroundings. You'll notice there's not a plant behind us anymore because it died, y'all. It did. Oh yeah, actually it's just out of the range of the camera because it is so crispy. All my plants are dead. It's sad.
Crispy at best.
Yeah, crispy at best. So we have this, and y'all, my house is total chaos. And last night, there were 2 times that I just spoke way more strictly than I needed to. Why? Because, well, I'm sinful, and the Lord's still working on my heart to not be impatient when I'm tired and when I'm stressed and when there is utter chaos in my house and there's boxes everywhere and nothing's where I can't find anything, And so one of my sweet girls, I was trying to tell her where to put something, and it was like top left drawer, and she's not anywhere near the top left drawer. But of course, the more strongly I put it, the more I paralyzed her brain to be able to do.
I don't know, but
she's just it's everywhere but the top left drawer, and I had to apologize and say, like, I don't know probably just my being like top left, or the repetition is just shutting your brain down. And I messed that up, and I'm sorry. So that's me that hasn't ever had a stroke, hasn't ever had, seizures. And when I'm stressed and things don't go my way, I end up having to apologize for things, but I'm, more accountable because I don't have those limitations and those developmental things. And so when you were saying it's not just your story, it's Evie's story as well, the thing that came to mind was that you are declaring that her life has great dignity, even though the world often views us and our worth and measures it by what we can contribute to quote normal society.
By output.
What can we produce?
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you are declaring by saying it is a privilege. I get to serve my daughter and I get to be part of her story, that she is so much an image bearer, just the same as the rest of us. Like you say, it's not fully your story to tell, but kind of, can you talk about, if you choose to, what it's like to kind of mother a daughter who needs all of these modifications and special attentions, while also kind of trying to balance that? Because I have a feeling that's something that a lot of moms who have special needs children struggle with. How do I give even attention and not prioritize?
Well, and that, that's why we originally homeschooled.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I mean, I know everyone's work or, financial situation is different. And some people, I guess, need to have multiple jobs anyways, which I guess I do have multiple jobs.
You do have multiple jobs. But you have fought hard to make the homeschooling thing work within that framework.
I have. Yeah. So, it is hard. And I mean, even just recently this week, the things, we've been going through, I didn't mean to shake that. I do feel like when I get to the end of this road, there will be things that my sons may be like, man, I kind of wish y'all wouldn't have done this, or this, but we're making the best decisions we can with the information we have in front of us.
Yep.
So it is hard. Evie does have outbursts. She is very difficult to respond to. You can't really require the same things of her. Yeah. She has chores. She has things she's supposed to do, but it may look like picking up this shirt and putting it here versus the boys are going to do the whole basket of laundry. Anyways, that being said, she, at about 3 or 4 years ago, I just wanted to be able to give my boys a good amount of me. But when Evie would be around, she kind of would suck there's not a kind way to say it, but kind of like suck the oxygen out of a room just because of how much she required. And she's mobile and she's verbal. And so I think for your listeners that have children that have that handicap, that probably is even harder. But so we decided to homeschool the boys because she was in life skills in the local public school setting. So she was gone during the day and I could give my boys that time, knowing that I only have them till 16, 17, 18, whatever age, and Evie will have, unless by a miracle, something changes, we'll always have her. And so that's something that was an intentional family decision that we made, which since making that decision, we are staying in that decision for multiple reasons that don't have anything to do with the original reason. Homeschooling, I think, is pretty much the best and only option at this point. But anyways, but that was one of the things we did. So I don't know if that answers.
No, that does answer
that's
your
what
question.
you're looking for.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard you grapple with what it looks like to have those hard conversations with your kids. But one thing I've heard you say is, I don't think it's a bad thing that they have to learn these skills to kind of learn these interpersonal skills that make them look outside themselves, right?
Yeah, they are. They are both. Judah's right now. He's listening to Temple Grandin's book,
which, if you don't know, Temple Grandin is autistic herself, and yet has accomplished so
the
much.
Movie's great. Yeah, we've watched it as a family several times, and so he's listening to her book, and I think that I feel like my boys, if God blesses them with a godly woman, that they will be incredible husbands and fathers. The way that they do automatically kind of look for the outsider. You know, my oldest son at school, one of his closer friends is on the spectrum. And I asked him one time, I said, you know, he said, well, no one was sitting with him. So I sat with him, and he's just kind of funny and I like him, you know, but they don't, I don't think they see it, but my husband and I see how they are kind of drawn to that, you know, not least of these, but you know, like the one that's not going to be naturally easy to hang around with. And, you know, other kids may have chores like, you know, Ezra put the babies down. Well, Elisha's chore will be, will you play stuffed animals with your sister for 30 minutes? And they try and I don't know. It's just they're giving of themselves and spending that time with her and having to, you know, turn the other cheek and all these things that you want, these character qualities that you want your kids to have. God has, you know, everything is needful that he gives. God has given them her as a sister. And it's, you're right. It is pruning them, and it is changing them, and giving them a challenge they would not have otherwise had, but they also love her. Yeah. You know, and they say, we love playing with her. Yeah. You know,
that's precious. And I know that it gives them empathy, and, you know, the difference with the definition of sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy, you feel sorry for someone, but you haven't experienced what they've gone through. Empathy, you've experienced the grief. And so while they have not walked Evie's road, they have been the brothers of someone walking Evie's road. And I have felt the same way about having a dad who's bipolar, that it gives me the ability to relate to people in a way that either struggle with mental health themselves or have relatives who do, that I wouldn't normally be able to have, because I wouldn't quote get it. On that same note, I do feel like sometimes when people are asking me this question about, like, I can't relate to you because you don't have my exact life circumstance. Could you bring on someone who has something close to my life circumstance? And I do feel like there's going to be a ton of people listening, nodding along and saying, she gets me. Oh man, I recognize that. I've got a version of that. I do think, and I've talked about this in other episodes, that it is a little bit dangerous though, if we're seeking out kind of a carbon copy of our struggles. I talk about this in Hard Is Not the Same Thing as Bad, that we have not all booked the same ticket on the same struggle bus. Like, just because
that's a shirt.
So yeah, I know that is a shirt.
Or a bumper
Pink
sticker.
Bros. Just because our struggle doesn't look like just someone else's doesn't mean that biblical principles don't apply of contentment, of dying to self. I was just listening to you talk about how your kids are looking for those who might be marginalized or those who might be on the fringes because they don't quite fit in. That is an example of that kernel going into the ground and dying and producing much fruit. Like, they have been given what many people would not view as a good opportunity, what the world certainly views as a detriment and something that would have hindered them, and instead given them eyes of compassion and empathy for those who struggle and have so much to offer, but have a struggle that's more obvious than the rest of our struggles, which we all have, but are sometimes more covered over by good manners,
easier to be around.
Yes, easier to be around. Exactly. And so my thought is that it is good, and I think the Lord is gracious to offer us people. You're one of them. My husband is another one who understands some of the things that we've been through. We have said so often, like, I'm so glad you get this aspect of my life, because it makes it where I can relate to you. I can hear from you. I can share with you freely. And I think that that is a huge gift. Can you talk a little bit about this idea, though, that even within the world of moms who have disabled kids, it's not ever going to kind of quite line up, and that's okay?
Yeah. So I think that pain wants companionship. Like, when you're in pain, I also feel like one of the lies of the enemy is that your pain, no one else has your pain. It's very branded just to you. And kind of this almost like, you know, the one of the lies about who God is himself, that he kind of is up there with the microscope, like, you know, not microscope. What's the thing?
Magnifying
Thank
glass,
you.
trying to burn us. I was tracking.
Picturing the boys on the sidewalk burning stuff. But I think that is one of the ways that this is not quite answering you, but it's one of the ways that the enemy keeps us sort of victimized, if I can say, like, my pain, you know, no one else has this brand of pain. And so I'm not going to go and find and try and relate to you if yours is not the same as mine. So you're like stuck in it. But at the same time, we were not created to be in pain alone. And like pain wants a companion. You want someone to grieve with. You want
we're supposed to mourn with those who mourn, and weep with those who weep, and rejoice with those who rejoice.
Yes. And bringing darkness into light is what puts light on it, you know, and in not that our pain is in and of itself sin. Sometimes it's a result of sin, but it's a dark thing. It's not a original creation thing. It's a result of the fall. And so trying to find, like you said, like this perfect match of like, well, you know, she can be content because her daughter has special needs, but at least she can walk. At least she can feed herself. At least she can talk.
Yes.
Well, you know, and I mean, I don't know, if you're trying to find the perfect, you know, brand of pain that fits your brand of pain, one, that's kind of where the enemy wants you, because it keeps you isolated.
Yeah.
And then you're never going to find, no one's ever going to be able to speak words of life into you. Yeah. And you're going to just kind of sit in that place of death. And that is what, I mean, not being content, feeling like sorry for yourself, or just that's a dark and lonely place, and kind of that victim mindset. Like you can have joy in any circumstance. And, you know, it says, Paul said that. And, I mean, I could look at other people's situations and be like, wow, their situation's worse than mine. Or I could look at like, you know, you're my best friend. And I'm never like, wow, you know, we don't have a hard time relating with the fact that you have 3 healthy daughters and I don't.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't really come up, you know?
Yeah. And I'm
does that make sense?
Yes. And I'm certainly not being like, well, I have 3 kids to your every one. So how do you deal with?
Yeah. You never throw that in my face.
It would be horrible if I did, but I've heard that mindset as well. Like, well, they don't even know just the sheer demands of how, you know, there's just so many more humans in my house. So sure, they may have a special, it's wrong.
Yeah. There's no doubt that you have nights that are definitely going to be harder than mine. You know, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like,
twins or something else.
Yeah, I mean, like, and, you know, Evie's, you know, watching Paw Patrol on the iPad and happy. Like, I'm like, I don't know. So, I guess what I'm saying is, yes, you like I said, my really good friend Gina in Houston, her son has Down syndrome. And so, but he can read, right? So he's going to have things that are different. But like, I think what the thing is if the enemy can convince you that you have to find the perfect brand of pain in order to listen to someone's wisdom, he's already got you. Because to not reach out, right? And to take, and like, and of course, what you said, I mean, scripture is scripture, to be content in all circumstances. And to the battle cry should always be, you know, less of me, more of him. And whatever vehicle he chooses to get you there, which for me, for my life, this was one of them. Yeah. You know, is having a daughter that and like I said, you know, it's humbling, but also like we have a great time with her. You know, we've learned a lot. And
you are very intentional about finding, you're very intentional with all 3 of your kids in the same way that I'm trying to be intentional with all 10 of my kids. You study their likes. You know what Evie loves. You know what Judah loves. So there's not really, while there are lots of modifications that you have to make, like the showering and the hairbrushing and things like that, that you wouldn't normally have to do for a 15-year-old. The principle, which we're talking about, that the principles are sound, even if the particulars don't line up exactly. Yeah. The principle of studying our kids and learning what they love and finding what works well to interact with them in a way that brings them and us joy still applies, right?
Yeah.
And I hear so many times, I have friends who have kids with Down syndrome, and they're like, you know, I wish you had a child like my child. I wish you could experience the joy of this caring, just cheerful, giving, always generous happy. Spirit, always happy. And so that's a particular diagnosis that I know a lot of people dread, but so much I hear is that they just don't understand, you know, and yet that is not your path, right? Because Evie is not always happy.
And you got to kind of think, and that's why it kind of takes back to the thing of what was I grieving is why do they dread it?
Right.
Because it's hard for me to go, like you said, like I'm thinking of Courtney, like the Down syndrome kids, they're all pretty happy with their life. So us feeling like, oh, poor them. They're like, why poor us? We're fine. Exactly. And so it just makes you realize some of the, and yes, Evie has had moments of, I don't have any friends, but then she also like, man, just get her a new Build-A-Bear and some Legos and she's good. Like
there is some
she doesn't
simplicity.
know what she's
Exactly. Yeah.
Completely.
She is content in her circumstances much of the time, more so than we are content for her, or, insert somebody else's name.
Right.
And so it's not trite to say when Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And he doesn't mean I can heal my daughter. He doesn't have a daughter, but if he were you, it doesn't mean I can heal all of her medical woes through Christ who strengthens me. I can assure that she is never rejected through Christ who strengthens me. Instead, it's taking responsibility for himself in Christ's strength. I can be content that these are the circumstances that the Lord gave me that are needful for me and my walk with the Lord, specifically through Christ who strengthens me. And that is such an important distinction to make, I think, because it's exactly what you were saying earlier. The minute our eyes get focused on what someone else has or doesn't have that we wish we did or didn't have, and how that means that we then cannot latch on to principles that are right, good, and true, is the moment that we have lost the thread to some extent of God's goodness in our life. And the fact of the matter is that whether it is an autistic daughter or a bipolar dad or your own terminal diagnosis, or, I mean, I could go through the list. I'm just thinking of people that I know, your past, coming back to haunt you or whatever, consequences of either sin and bad decisions or just living in a fallen world. The fact of the matter is God is still good.
Yeah. And also not choosing those things within those not choosing the contentment and all that within those circumstances is kind of altering the scripture to fit you. Like, I know he said,
preach,
I should be content, but surely he didn't mean with this or
I have heard that so many times. I've thought it before, for sure, before you capture that. I mean, I think that's kind of an underlying thought. I've thought it about really petty things, like the blowout when I just used my last diaper. Like, Lord, like, this is so silly. Why did we need to do this now? But my ability to genuinely be discontented in that moment is an indication of my need for sanctification, because it's interesting how sometimes it's the bigger things that I can be more content in. Like, Lord, you're sovereign. You gave me this cross to bear. You flooded our house. You're still good. You have a purpose in this. Like, kind of handled that with his strength without feeling too resentful of it at all. It was just like, you must have a purpose in this. But I'm ticked off that the toddler is freaking out when I'm late, So I think it applies to the big circumstances and the little ones.
Yeah.
I think those are the main things that I wanted to chat with you. You're like, I did. We're done.
No, I'm just like, it's just, when we talk either by voice memo or daily, and then you're like, here's a mic and an audience. And I'm like, I don't know where to look.
No, you're doing great.
But yeah,
I think that there will be a lot of people that will be encouraged by your story. I know there will be. I will get messages from people that will say, thank you for bringing your friend on to share, because this part of it was what I needed to hear today.
Oh, I hope so.
I guarantee you so. I think the Lord is good to do that, to give us pieces of other people's stories. And it's why I wanted to have you here, to say, my truth is truth no matter what. But I understand that you needed this piece of encouragement. So my encouragement for you today, and Lindsay's encouragement, I know as well, is to not isolate yourself, to be willing to share your pain with others when the Lord brings along that person with whom you can, because there are some people that will receive it better than others. I think another thing that I see in you that's so important, and definitely something the Lord convicts me to do, is to look outside yourself. The closer we hold our pain to our chest and the more we drop our chin and gaze directly at it, instead of, as the song says, looking full in his wonderful face, the more likely we are to feel like this is the only thing there is. This is kind of all encompassing. It makes me think we're reading The Hiding Place together as a family. Slowly. We've been poking along. But it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. I think I read it as when I was young, but I didn't remember the particulars. But it's Betsy, Corey ten Boom, Betsy ten Boom's, the sisters' attitude that is so convicting. Corey's a little more relatable. She gets mad. She gets resentful. It's so good.
Okay.
Read it
Okay.
Read it to your boys. They will
We're
love
on
it.
Secret Garden.
Which is wonderful too. But Corey is famously known for saying that the only safe place is in the center of God's will. And she truly believed it was God's will that they be caught and sent to prison, not because these people were doing right, but because the Lord had a purpose in it. And he did. And he has, and he's just multiplied her story and used it to bless millions of people across the world. And that would not have happened. She would have impacted the Jews that she was saving particularly, and that would have been enough. But then the Lord literally took that kernel of dying, which was her father died in prison, and her sister died in the concentration camp, and then has multiplied it to bless and preach the gospel to literally millions of people. So she was right. Not that we're surprised, because she was speaking truth. But it's Betsy that is the most convicting to me, and to Corey, you can see, because at one point Corey finds out who has betrayed them, and she's so angry. And because her father died in obscurity, and she has been, struggling with all of these maladies, and she's been put in solitary confinement. She can't see her family. She doesn't know how they're doing. And she says, Betsy, I can't remember the wording she uses exactly, but it's kind of like, I just feel so strongly. And Betsy goes, oh, me too. I feel so sorry for him. Of course, she's angry. Corey's angry at the man who betrayed them. And Betsy says, I know I've been praying for him. I do feel terrible for him, Corey, like how wretched he must be. And Corey has this moment where it happens several times throughout the book, but she goes, yet again, I looked at my sister and thought, what world are you from? Like, what? You are not of this world. That's where your brain first went. But I think in relation to what I was just saying a minute ago, Betsy wasn't looking at herself and her own struggles. She was looking at what someone else was dealing with.
Well, and you, tangent, because I'm doing that missions course, the perspectives course, that's just amazing for the second time. And one of the things that I'm thinking of is you're talking about they're like in the center of God's will, and look at how it multiplied the story. The fact that not only does he save us, but he gives us an opportunity to participate in what he's doing. That's where I've realized the greatest joy is. Like, there is joy in knowing him and in being redeemed and knowing that, your sins are forgiven and you're going to, but it wasn't supposed to just be that, right? So to be like what you're doing, like to be able to be part of this plan that he has. It's like, I told a friend, it's like, there's a movie and the script's already been written and it's being filmed and they're casting, and it's going to happen whether you are in it or not, but you want to be in it. And it's like, that to me is how he's been showing me lately that it's not, to be part of his kingdom coming on earth as it is in heaven. And we know, like in Revelations, when it says that, then I saw, the Lamb, and they opened the scroll and they said, worthy are you. And it's like, so sorry, that relating to having special needs kid or whatever I'm just thinking that he gave this. And if he gave me this thing, my response is yes. Yeah. It should be yes, because whatever you're doing, that's what I want to be part of. Yeah. And I could be a believer and not say yes, and maybe live my life in discontent and bitter. And when I die, I'll still go to heaven or whatever. But it says, I forget where it is. You may know, maybe it's in Corinthians, that it says, no man can lay a foundation other than the foundation laid, which is Jesus Christ. However, whether he builds on it with wood, hay, and stubble, or bricks, and it talks about how what it's built on. And then it says, gosh, I wish I could find it, but it says that the man who builds with the hay still may escape, but only as one barely escaping through the flames, it says. And so anyways, that was a tangent that you can choose to cut or leave. But I'm just thinking about how whatever he has for me, whatever he has in his hands that he is giving me, is a yes. I want it
Yeah.
because I want to be part of whatever he's doing. And, anyways,
No, that's
I don't
so
know
good.
where that fits in, but,
No.
and two, whenever you were talking to them and saying what we're going to leave you with and stuff, just that he wants to comfort us. He is good, and his joy is in healing our pain. Like one of the things, you know, it says in Isaiah that he will wipe every tear from their eyes. So if you are in pain and you feel like you're isolated or you feel like you can't relate to anybody, and this is just, there really has been times where it is suffocating and it's exhausting. And you've heard me on the trail in those times, but just to know that, God is, he is a God that is involved in the details now. And, that Jesus, you know, he lives to intercede for his saints, and that, he's there to heal the brokenhearted, you know, and bring beauty from ashes. So
absolutely. So yes, we want to encourage you that whatever you're going through is not without purpose, that the Lord has chosen you, not because of how great you are, but because of how great he is and will be through you as you are a willing vessel, just like Lindsay was talking about. And that, he is able to work even this, whatever your even this is, for good. And that's not just a trite platitude. And will do so, he has promised, for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. If you enjoyed the Emma's for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends, or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.